Welcome to my channel Forever Celeb.
At 80 years old, Cher is still called indestructible. But no woman becomes indestructible unless life keeps throwing challenges her way, challenges she must survive. The world remembers her voice, her gowns, her iconic black hair, the Oscar she won, her sharp humor, her comebacks, and the miracle of belief. But behind all that glitter was a little girl who once learned that love could be real and yet still fail to protect her. A young woman who had to fight fiercely for her own name. And now, as a mother, she faces the harsh truth that fame, fortune, and sheer willpower cannot always save a child in time. Cher did not become unstoppable because life was gentle. She became unstoppable because each time something was taken from her, be it a home, a marriage, a version of family, a piece of her youth, or the illusion that love can save all, she found the strength to rise again. Through a small window of a Catholic orphanage, a little girl once watched for the face of a mother she loved, too young to understand how love could exist and yet leave her behind glass. Before the world knew the name Cher, before the rhinestones, the Bob Mackie gowns, and the voice that would one day fill arenas, there was a child born in El Centro, California, in 1946. Her life was one of constant upheaval. Her mother, Georgia Holt, was beautiful, ambitious, and restless, qualities that both opened doors and complicated life. Georgia dreamed of a stage, a song, a chance, yet could give little steadiness to her daughter. Cher's father, John Paul Sarisian, was largely absent, an Armenian-American man battling heroin addiction. His absence took up space, teaching Cher early that no one could be counted on to stay. She learned to stand on her own before anyone else could. Georgia moved often, different cities, different apartments, different men. There were stretches when food was scarce, electricity uncertain, and stability a distant hope. Cher would later describe these hardships with stark clarity, pain processed many times but never fully gone. She was different from the start. In the rigid social order of 1950s America, different was never a compliment. Dark, exotic, half Armenian, struggling with dyslexia before it had a name or support, she endured humiliation and isolation. She didn't fit, and she decided early on that if she was to be different, she would be so intentionally, loudly, unapologetically, without permission. At 9, she told her mother she was going to be famous. Georgia, who understood the cost of dreams better than most, did not laugh. She had raised a child who meant every word she said. At 16, Cher left school with just $20 and a suitcase, fueled by an unshakable conviction, something many spend a lifetime seeking. She had no plan, only certainty that she was meant for something beyond what she yet saw. She took acting classes, worked as a waitress, cleaned houses, absorbing Los Angeles with hungry eyes, storing every experience like precious fuel. Then she met Salvatore Philip Bono. Sonny Bono was 10 years her senior, streetwise, connected, and full of confidence. He saw in Cher not just beauty but a refusal to be diminished. He fell in love and sought to shape her into the version he envisioned. For a while, she let him. She was 16. He was 26. She had $20 and a dream that he had power and plans. What she would later realize was that the greatest act she would ever perform in that relationship was survival. Sonny Bono believed in her before the world did. He built the scaffolding of a career that would outlast him. But he also controlled her completely. Every dollar, every song, every public statement passed through him. She was the voice. He was the architect. Together, they became Sonny and Cher. Their comedy show, running from 1971 to 1974, drew 50 million weekly viewers. Millions watched a woman who had little control over her own career. She filed for divorce in 1975. Sonny warned her she was nothing without him. The world loved Sonny and Cher, not Cher alone. She learned otherwise, but not without cost. The years that followed were difficult. Her solo career stumbled, TV specials faltered, relationships failed. Yet she persevered. Then came her breakout acting career. Hollywood initially rejected her, seeing her as a TV personality or pop star, not a serious actress. Auditions were humiliating, dismissals routine. But she kept going, studied, took small roles, and performed in New York theater where she felt most alive. She broke through with Sybil, 1976, Places in the Heart, 1984, Mask, 1985, and Moonstruck, 1987. At 41, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress for Places in the Heart. Her acceptance speech was composed, a moment awaited for decades. But the true victory was years of silent refusals to quit. The Oscar was recognition, not the fight itself. The world knows Cher by her voice, defiance, and timeless presence. But that image is incomplete. In the early 1990s, just as she reached the pinnacle, her body began to betray her. Fatigue unlike any other settled deep in her bones. Muscle aches came unpredictably. Headaches lingered. Mental fog clouded her mind. She pushed through until her body demanded surrender. She was finally diagnosed with chronic Epstein-Barr virus, a condition only recently well understood. No cure existed, only a new reality of limits. She cancelled tours, withdrew from the spotlight. Rumors and tabloids filled the silence. The truth was quieter and more painful. A woman lying in darkness, stripped of her identity. For someone who survived by becoming, forced stillness was a crisis. Amid this, her son Elijah Blue Allman grew up. Born in 1976 to Cher and rock legend Greg Allman, Elijah's life was blessed yet troubled. Sensitive and creative, he carried his mother's intensity and his father's shadows. He watched Cher survive everything. But that legacy bore a heavy cost. Growing up in such a shadow can isolate and teach that pain is something to perform through, not to feel freely. Elijah learned survival's language but lacked his mother's armor. Substance abuse offered numb relief. The cost came later. And when it came, it struck them both fiercely. There is courage the world never applauds, not the spotlight's courage, but the quiet private battle. A parent's desperate fight, love's ultimate paradox. In September 2023, Cher filed to become Elijah's conservator. He was 47. The petition detailed his struggles with addiction and mental health, asserting he could no longer manage on his own. Behind the legal language was a mother's heartbreak. A woman watching her son slip away despite everything. Elijah contested the petition, asserting his autonomy. The law respected his rights. The case dragged on while media reduced suffering to sensational headlines. What the headlines missed was Cher's lived reality. At 79, she faced the pain of powerlessness. A parent unable to compel an adult child's acceptance of help. She invested millions in treatment. Traveled cross-country on desperate missions. Loved fiercely, without pause or reprieve. By 2024, whispers of concern about her health grew. The relentless years had worn on her extraordinary spirit. Yet she fights still. Not for tidy endings or public applause. But for the truth known intimately by parents of addicted children. Love is not always enough. Money is not always enough. Fame is not enough. But she endures. Because giving up was never her language. This is where real transformation lives. Not in awards or sold-out arenas. But in courtrooms. In love that remains unseen, unphotographed, uncelebrated. At 79, Cher's legacy transcends records and fame. It is the indomitable refusal to be diminished. She refused to be poor forever. She refused to be owned. She refused to be dismissed. She refused to be defined by marriages, divorces, age, or illness. And now, at an age when most make peace with life's shape, she refuses one last thing. She refuses to let her son go without a fight. Not because she knows she will win, but because she knows love's power and limits. Because, at the beginning, we asked a question. What do you do when the one you die for won't let you help them live? Her answer has been consistent through every impossible challenge. You keep going. You show up. You refuse to disappear. Not because you're guaranteed victory, but because stopping is not in your nature. The little girl who vowed at 9 she would be famous. The teenager who arrived with $20 and fierce conviction. At 79, with everything on the line, Cher speaks the only language she's ever known. She is still here. Still fighting. Still Cher. Would you like me to continue this expansion or add narration pacing cues?